Welcome to the Dowden Podcast. I'm your host, the official CRG, and today we are going to do a story time on high school and my experiences throughout the years. But you can find this video strictly on YouTube, but the audio everywhere else. Now, I have to say, excuse me for my voice. I've been really sick over the past couple weeks. It's affected my lungs, so I'm going to be taking a lot of breaths. It might get annoying, so I am sorry for that. But before we dive into my experiences throughout high school, let me kind of give you a little history and backstory beforehand. So, I grew up in Annapolis, Maryland, a little city between Baltimore and DC. And Annapolis was a party city for a long time, it still is. But in the last few years, a lot has happened with an increase in gangs and crime, having it be a hot spot for certain stuff. So, going into my freshman year, I was already getting into trouble. I was fighting in middle school, getting suspended, skipping class, not worrying about my grades, and I barely passed 8th grade, but somehow I did. And then high school came, and there I just went completely into the deep end. So I specifically remember the first day of high school, we all walk into the auditorium, and I swear there were maybe 300 plus kids in there, and I knew just from that and what was happening that this was going to be a crazy year because that was just our freshman class, not counting the other 3 grades. And basically, how my school worked is that they would take different districts and cities and that they would come to my school because it was mainly an art school, I guess. So we would have new people every single day, but that eventually became a problem because right when people would go to the bus, they'd literally get like jumped or stabbed for past problems or beef that was going on. And this was a constant thing throughout the year. People would meet in the bathrooms and fight. You'd hear about people carrying guns and bringing knives. And to be honest, I'd even go into the bathrooms to just hit my vape and see some kid get his head get smashed into the sink and then see somebody else in the stall smoking a blunt. So all this chaos just kind of became normal to me, and I wasn't thinking about anything I saw or did because it was normal everyday life. So during freshman year, I was doing the bare minimum, doing some work in class, but mainly I was going to the bathroom, just skipping or walking the halls. And, at my school, they would give us this hour to either go hang out somewhere or go to a class. And I would literally just leave and not come back. I did this all the time to where admin would literally just find where I am and just drive me back to school. And, somehow through that, I grew a bond with some of the teachers there because, I was dealing with a lot of stuff outside of school also. And they knew that. So, they would cut me some slack and help me out, which is the only reason I think I passed freshman year. So at the end of the year, I somehow passed. And during that summer, I kind of changed, but, not for the better. I started getting into more stuff, digging myself into almost an endless hole with just problems or with people or just like a whole bunch of other stuff. Almost making myself, numb to everything and not caring what I did or what happened because I had no choice. It's not like I could just get up and leave. So I had to put myself in almost like this fighting mentality where I just always had to stay in my ground. So eventually summer ended and, it was time for sophomore year. And I remember waking up, thinking all the bullshit that has happened and started during the summer with everybody, that this year is going to be crazy. And man, was I right. And just like freshman year, we all walk in and go to the auditorium. But before we even got there was already 3 fights happening at once. And, we all knew it was going to be crazy. But like I said, it's normal to most of us. So nobody really cared. And eventually the police got there because we had officers in our school and they broke it up and we had our meeting about the year and stuff like that and all the different classes. And eventually a couple weeks go by and I'm doing work, but I'm still skipping and just leaving when I can. I'm getting into fights and getting suspended, and eventually the school just kind of had enough and put me in a 504 program. Now, for people who don't know what a 504 program is, it basically lets you work from home and do your work there because I could just never focus in class or my mind would always be elsewhere or I'd just be getting into stuff. And, once that happened, COVID actually hit, which low key worked out for me because everyone had to be online anyway, and I wasn't the only one. I didn't feel left out. But, that was also really hard for most kids because they need that interaction. But, for me, I was always better alone. So we finished the year online, and that summer was just terrible. I mean, nobody could do anything or go anywhere because of COVID. And I honestly got a little depressed over the summer, and I'm sure a lot of people did too because you were just so isolated. But, eventually summer ended and COVID was still here. So we all started the year online. And once online started, I was just almost like a new person. I started doing homework and turning things in, and I started passing tests for once and keeping A's and B's. And for once, I was actually kind of doing good in school. I kind of dropped all the BS that I was in and left it all alone. I got a job. So after class, I'd go work, and that way I'd have money to do or get whatever I want. I even made my own little gaming company called NXE Sports with a close friend of mine, and we would play Rainbow Six Siege and have it streamed to a community of people. And, I felt like I was on the right path, finally digging myself out of that hole. And then it just all came crashing back down. You know, the team fell apart and we all stopped playing professional. I got into a bunch of other stuff, which took me down a bad road. And I was basically just back to square one. And then senior year came and I decided to stay online. They were letting some people come back to school, but there was restrictions. You had to be 6 feet away. You had to wear a mask. I just didn't want to deal with any of that, so I just stayed online. But mind you, I was back at square one, so I didn't really care about anything anymore anyway. So the year started. I would sleep late. I wouldn't pay attention. I would go out and do stupid stuff, and then I just woke up one day and realized that I had to make a change. I just realized that it wasn't a choice anymore because at the route I was going, it was either jail or worse. So I made the change and I basically cut everybody off. I focused on school and work. I started saving money, studying again, and eventually I passed with straight A's. And, I finished high school, and right when I turned 19, I left Maryland to go to Florida, and it's been history since. I started up dialed in, I work a part time job, and now nothing is going to get in the way of my success and my determination. So, this episode wasn't only to walk you through what I went through in high school and throughout the years, but to just show you that no matter how deep or lost you are into something, it's never too late to go get out of it and make a change because I did it. So, don't give up on yourself or your dreams because of your situation or your environment. Just work a little harder to make sure it comes true. But with that said, today's quote is by Jen Sincero. She once said, "If you're serious about changing your life, you'll find a way. If you're not, you'll find an excuse." I appreciate you tuning in. Make sure to leave a like and follow down below. You can follow us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And this is the Dowden Podcast.